Hey students, in today's lesson we are going to we're kind of starting this unit that's focusing on the Aztec perspective of Spanish colonization in what was called at the time the New World. And to kind of explore this, we really need to explore the idea of perspective and someone's point of view, and how someone's point of view can be incredibly biased. Maybe for just from the fact that they've only learned one side of a story, or that bias can come from other places as well. To kind of start this unit about learning about a different side of history, your challenge in today's lesson is to write a different story of a popular children's book. Yes, The Three Little Pigs. So in this lesson, you're going to want to learn the traditional story, but you're also going to want to look at the story that's told from the wolf's perspective by a wolf. And then your challenge will be to write a story from a completely different perspective. Exploring different perspectives in literature, what my hope is that's really going to allow us to look at the Spanish colonization of the Aztec people from all perspectives, because for too long, too many people, even historians and teachers, only really looked at the Spanish perspective without looking at the Aztec side of the story. So to start with this lesson today, my challenge is for you to write your own side of the story of the children's book, The Three Little Pigs. We'll start the lesson from here. Hey students, so this is the first time I'm broadcasting using this app that I found on my iPad called Record It. So I'm not quite sure how it's going to go. So I do appreciate your patience during this time. It is my goal to try to get at least 4 videos uploaded per week. Everything else, though, you're going to notice it seems pretty normal. I'm in my Nepali clothing, and also got my Spindrift grapefruit drink. And I kind of, looking over the lessons today, I think I told you on the last week where we had class that I was really excited with what we had in store, with exactly what lessons that we had coming up. And the same is definitely true here. Even if for this week we just have virtual videos for a while, I'm still incredibly excited about what the future holds for social studies here at Woodland Park Middle School. So I think the best way, or what I'm thinking about doing today, is just kind of going over some of the things that we talked about before, especially with this idea of perception. And we talked about how often in history, we've only heard one side of the story in our histories. And I think I told you about how history itself is always changing. And it's funny because the first questions I often get when I say history itself is always changing is how is that true? How can history change if it's already happened? And I think what's important is that history in itself is our telling. It's the storytelling of past events. But oftentimes that storytelling is influenced by someone's personal bias, right? We've gone over bias before, right? Like how I'm an obnoxious Chiefs fan, right? So so I'm probably going to be pretty biased, or I'm probably only going to focus on the positive things about the Kansas City Chiefs, right? It's going to be difficult for me to get negative about my team. But bias itself in history happens all the time. Whenever you learn from somebody that has really only heard one side of the story, you're only going to hear that side of the story. So, Mr. Honeycutt, are you telling me that what I learn in your class, you're saying that I should get another side of the story even if you just taught me something in class? I should look and see what other people are saying about that thing. Is that right? Yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. Always double check, triple check. We're going to go over the rule of thirds today as well. And I always want you double and triple checking me. Always. I told you the example about ancient Egypt, right? About how when I was in middle school, I learned that the pyramids were constructed by folks who were enslaved. And that was a big part of what I was tested on what I learned in history. And now, just about 14 years later, I've learned, when I was teaching ancient Egypt last year, a lot of people have moved on from that. Now people say that instead of people who were enslaved who built the pyramids, it was actually just a system of taxation. Here in the United States, we pay taxes. It comes out of our paycheck. It's a percentage of our paycheck that we pay every month. Tax can also happen in sales tax. Like when I'm buying that delicious Twix bar at the gas station, I might pay a little bit in sales tax, a little bit extra, and that money can go towards the public good. And in ancient Egypt, instead of paying money for taxes, it's believed now that people paid their taxes when they weren't farming by helping construct the pyramids. That is a big change from when I was in school. And it's quite possible that the things that I teach you in this history class, some of these things might change by the time that you're my age, which, believe it or not, is not that far away. So that's why I always want you to question. That's the thing about history, is that it is changing. Our understanding is rapidly changing about history. And now we have more access to people than ever around the world who are constantly looking at historical documents, which is constantly changing our understanding of past events. And so why does it matter? This question I get as a history teacher all the time. So what's so important about learning about history? When am I ever going to use history when I get older? Now, this is a question I get all the time, but it doesn't annoy me. It constantly challenges me to talk about the importance of the job that I have. And as we're going to learn today, when we talk about perception, right? We're talking about it through the lens of the Spanish. When the Spanish colonized the Aztecs in central Mexico, right? We, for hundreds of years, really only heard the Spanish side of the story. We really did not pay attention to the Aztec side of the story, which is why it's so important to look at multiple perspectives in history and always search for multiple perspectives in history. And as we continue learning about the Aztecs, something that we're learning about now is about how Aztec farming techniques could be vital for us as we continue to search and think about how we can continue to feed growing cities and a growing population on our planet. And these farming techniques that were perfected by the Aztecs hundreds of years ago could again come into our modern world and help feed our planet. All right, so we'll see. I'm going to jump to Nearpod real quickly. All right, so jumping to Nearpod, we're going to explore this lesson real quickly. All right. So, it's going to ask me to sign in here. All right. We're going to go into my library. That was my grapefruit spindrift. All right. So let's jump into perspective. All right. So students, real quickly, I'm going to jump and throw out a student pace code right here. So this code right here, if you go to nearpod.com and you type in this code that's right in front of you, you can join in this lesson. And I encourage it. I think with a lesson like this, you're going to look at multiple pictures where someone might see a different picture. You could be sitting beside your sibling or your parent, and they could see a completely different picture than you do. And these create a lot of fun conversations, and it really kind of goes into this idea of perspective that we're talking about today. So I would love if you took time, did this student pace Nearpod lesson, and participated in this activity. All right, so kind of jumping forward in this lesson real quick, we'll just jump and do a live lesson here. All right, so disregard that code as I am not in the classroom right now. All right, so All right, so going over the cog skills that we're going to learn on the Summit platform today, we're going to be, of course, be learning about point of view. Because this is going to be important not only when you look at history, but when we look at our news today. It's really important that you constantly evaluate the point of view of the folks who are giving you your information. Everyone is going to have a different perspective. Everyone is going to have a different bias. And that's why it is so important to constantly be thinking about the point of view of someone who's giving you information. That could be a newscaster, that can be a historian, and yes, that can be a teacher as well. All right, so perspectives in history. I want you to first look at this picture right here. This is a very famous comic, right? Which is showing a person who is chasing another person with a weapon, right? And I want you to first kind of look at that image that's beyond the camera and see what is actually happening here. But then I want you to look at the camera. What is the camera capturing? So what I want you to think about is any examples in history where you might have learned something and then later you learn that there was just a whole other side of the story. And this can also be something that might have happened in a modern news story as well. So think about maybe when you heard a story told in the news and then realize that perhaps not only was this story wrong, but maybe the opposite was true. This can happen in anything too. Have you ever heard something about a friend from someone else and then learned that this information was flatly incorrect? Things like this happen all the time. So I want you to take a moment, look at this picture, and talk with a sibling or talk with someone if you can about what's going on in this picture. I'll give you a couple of seconds if you want to pause the video. All right, moving forward. All right, so perspective. All right, so what I want you to talk about with this perspective image, right? All right, so in this image right here, it's a very famous image, right? So it is of two people. One person believes that they see a 9 and the other person believes that they see a 6. And I want you to talk about is someone in this picture, or why do they have different ideas of what this number is? Now, on this, it says if it's true, two people can look at the same picture and see something different without being wrong. How might this affect a conflict? So I think there's a couple of important things about this picture to study. And the first part of it is that whoever wrote the number that's between the two people right here, that number, whoever wrote that number wrote it knowing that it was a 6 or a 9. So there is technically a correct answer here. However, these two people, without that information, do you think they are going to be able to figure out what the correct answer is? So talk about that perspective. What do you think is important in this picture? Do you think it's important? Do you think it's important for these two people to try to figure out why they might have a different idea of what this number is to each other? Take a moment and talk this out with somebody. All right, so students, I'm going to go real quickly just to kind of add to this point. Let's see. All right, so students, I think all the time, the thing about this image is that historians all the time have to do this exact thing with information that we find, right? So we talked about, for a while, we talked about how when the Mayan Empire was when the Catholic Church kind of took over that territory of the Mayan Empire, right? One of the things that they tried to do to erase Mayan history was burn their libraries. And since that time, I don't know if you remember, but only 4 books originally were recovered from the entire Mayan history. But here's the challenge with this. Those 4 books weren't necessarily dictionaries or books about Mayan history. These were just 4 books that were found. So I want you to, for a moment, pretend that the United States got conquered. We can say aliens came down, an entire alien civilization came down and conquered the United States and burned all of the books that the United States had in their libraries. But 4 books were recovered. But these books don't go into United States history or United States culture, right? These books could have been Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Excellent book right here, but doesn't really go into the history of the United States. The Infinity Gauntlet right here, that's, a highly recommended reading, but again, not really talking about history. So gods, goddesses, and monsters. Okay, so while this is an encyclopedia, it's an encyclopedia about myths that we have. And so someone who might read this book from the United States might think that gods, goddesses, and monsters were our belief system. They might get incorrect ideas about culture in the United States if they read this encyclopedia. Finally, the 4th book, 1,339 quite interesting facts that make your jaw drop. And again, these facts could help someone get some understanding about the United States, but these facts themselves are random. I just turned to a random page, page 59. All right, so the top fact on here, 95% of baby rabbits don't survive beyond their first 6 months. Aw. But again, that doesn't really say a lot about U.S. culture. So why does this matter, right? Why does this matter? So we as historians all the time have to go into this 9 and 6 debate, right? Because we weren't around when someone wrote that original number or original fact. So oftentimes we as historians have to give our best hypothesis for this information, and specifically how cultures of the world survived and functioned just from information that we often find without context. So again, I want you to again consider, why would this create a conflict if 2 people disagree? And more importantly, what should people do to try to avoid a conflict when they encounter someone who has a different idea about what this number could be? Is it a 9? Is it a 6? All right. So we're going to practice. You're going to see a series of images. When seeing an image, I want you to write down what you see and only what you see. It would be an awesome thing if you could sit down beside a sibling or a parent and have them write down what they're seeing too, because believe it or not, they might see something completely different from these images. All right, we ready? All right, without talking to your neighbor, write down what you see in this painting. Write down what you see. All right. So I would pause the video at this point. Pause the video. All right. And write down what you see. All right, so in this image, there are, I think, multiple things that you can see, right? So why do you think some people might have seen a cup in this image? Let's look at that center of that image right there. Let's look at this image. So you're going to notice that there is a cup in this image, and some people, however, some people are going to see the 2 faces that are looking at each other. Do you think there is a correct way to see the picture? What did you feel when you discovered the other aspect of this picture? Could you see it the other way? Maybe you originally saw the faces, but once you saw that cup, you could not unsee that image. Not unsee that image. All right. So remember, don't just blurt what you see real quick when you see these images. Be sure you write it down. All right. So image 2, first the painting credit, we're going to go with Forever Always by Octavio Ocampo. So this is one of my favorite images here. I want you to, again, write down what you see in this image without talking to your neighbor, and have your neighbor do the same exact thing. All right, this would be a great chance to pause the video. All right, now talk. So talk to your neighbors. What did they see? You may notice the first thing that a lot of people see in this image are of two faces, right? Two faces. But if you look closely, the man on the right, you'll notice that a lot of his facial structure is actually of a gentleman who is playing guitar. And you'll notice that the woman to the left, her face structure is of a woman. And between them, you'll also notice that there is another goblet or a cup in between them. But a lot of people don't see that first image real quickly when or they don't see the entire image when they first look at it. They only see maybe the faces, they only see maybe the cup. All right, so we'll go to another image right here. Without talking to your neighbors, I want you to write about the woman that is in this image. How old do you think the woman is here? How old? All right, I'll let you pause the video. All right, so students, so you may notice in this image, it's called the portrait of a woman right here. So if you look at the left side of the image, the left of the woman's face, you may notice a picture of a younger woman or who looks like a younger woman. But if you look at her ear, you might notice that her ear actually looks like an eye with eyelashes. And if you see that eye, you might notice that the chin of the younger woman suddenly becomes a nose. And this is actually and the woman suddenly looks much older. So the fun thing about a painting like this, when I showed this to students last week, a lot said that this could be actually a portrait of the same woman. And the younger woman was this woman in her youth, and the older woman was this woman when she got older. You'll notice that the younger woman's neckline, it looks like she's wearing a necklace, is also a mouth for the older woman. So did you agree? Did your neighbor see the woman the same way you did, or did you have differences in how you saw this image? Be sure to talk about that with your neighbor. All right, the dress. Okay, so believe it or not, this created a social media sensation. One of the first. It happened over Facebook, and when this image came out, it was complete pandemonium. So without talking to your neighbor, I want you to first talk about what color do you see in this dress? What is the color of the dress that you see? Be sure to write down the colors of the dress. And you could pause the video. All right, so this image, I cannot express it enough. This created an absolute viral sensation because I don't know what color you see here, but I see gold and white. The top of the dress that I see, like the top kind of center left, is gold, and then the middle or the top middle is white that I see. There are people who can see a much different color, like a purple and a black with this image. For me, it is gold and white. This image, I can only see it gold and white. I have never been able to see this other color. Some people, when they tilt their head one way or the other, they are able to see that purple and black color compared to that gold and white color. So this image, to my understanding, it's because of the incredible light in this image on the right side of the image that makes the color appear gold and white or purple and black. So that's why there is so disparate in the colors, or people can see such different colors in this image. All right, and then finally, with the painting credit up there, I want you to look at this image. Without talking to your neighbors, I want you to write down what you see in this painting. What do you see in this image? All right, now talk to your neighbors. What do they see? Awesome. This is one of my favorite images. My students, I think you all know by now by the amount of Vincent van Gogh ties that I wear about how much I love Vincent van Gogh. And I love this image because obviously the center of the image, you can kind of see Van Gogh's face, but his beard, if you notice, can become buildings like they're in a city. His ear is a hat of another individual who seems to be writing down. If you look at their face right there, they're writing down something else. And this painting did such an incredible job. This painter did such an incredible job at kind of creating multiple images within this painting. All right, so what is there to make of all this, right? You can, I think, going into this idea of perspective, not only are you going to have different perspectives in images like this, but you're also going to see different perspectives in history, but also children's stories. So I want you to take a moment and talk with your neighbor. What's the story of the Three Little Pigs? Do a little refresher on that story of the Three Little Pigs. All right, so from my just talking from my memory of the Three Little Pigs is there's a few different stories, but Three Little Pigs created three different houses. One little pig, well, he wasn't the most dedicated little pig. He created a house out of straw, while another little pig, he was a little more dedicated, but just, not still wasn't at that level that you'd want to be as a homeowner. He created all his house out of sticks. And then finally, the last little pig created his house out of brick. One day, a big bad wolf came, blew the house down of straw. That little pig ran to the other little pig's house that had a house full of sticks. The big bad wolf then meandered over to the house of sticks, blew that one down too. Those two little pigs ran to their brother's house, who had a house of brick. The big bad wolf then huffed and puffed, but couldn't get the house of brick down. And so this story's been told. There's many different versions, some where the first two pigs became slabs of bacon and the wolf, ate quite well. Other stories where the three little pigs all escaped to that last house and then captured the big bad wolf. That story has changed over time. But one of my favorite stories is thinking about if there was another side of this story. So, students, I want you to look up The True Story of the Three Little Pigs by A. Wolf. You can get an animated version of this story on YouTube. You also, if you have access to Amazon Prime Video, you can get an incredibly detailed and animated story which tells this story from the wolf's side. And the wolf says he was framed. So take a moment, pause this video, watch that story if you can. If you go to my Nearpod right here, we'll see if it pops up. All right, so this is a link to the true story of the Three Little Pigs by A. Wolf on Amazon Prime. If you have Prime access, you can watch it. If not, there is a version on YouTube you can watch as well, and it's all from the Wolf's perspective. So students, one assignment that you can do if you haven't already on checkpoint 2 on perspectives is you're going to be challenged to write your own story of the Three Little Pigs. In this story, from this assignment, you are going to have to write about this story from the perspective of maybe someone who is part of wildlife conservation. So think about the wolf sanctuary that we have out in Teller County, right? How would what do you think someone who works at the wolf sanctuary, whose job it is to protect wolves, what do you think they would think of this story about a wolf getting captured? Do you think they might want the wolf to live in better conditions? Do you think they might defend the wolf, thinking that the wolf, was only trying to find food? But then think about it from maybe a pig farmer. How do you think that farmer who relies on pigs in order to get the money that they need for their family, how do you think they might think if a wolf came onto their property and ate 3 of the little pigs that they're tasked to care for? You're going to be challenged to write your own story too. So maybe you can write about it from the perspective of the Three Little Pigs teacher. Maybe their shop teacher who taught the 3 little pigs how to build. Maybe 2 of the pigs weren't paying attention and 1 was. I really want to challenge you to write your own version of the 3 little pigs from a new perspective. Because remember, in this overall unit, we are going to jump in learning about the Aztecs from the Aztec point of view. And what I want you to do is I want to start challenging you to explore different points of view, not only in history, but in the news that you read, as well as something like the 3 Little Pigs. So see if you can get a different perspective. In tomorrow's lesson, what we are going to learn or talk about in tomorrow's lesson is we are going to start going into how our news can give us radically different points of view depending on the channel that we watch. In our 3rd lesson, that's when we are going to start learning about things from the Aztec perspective in this unit. Students, I thank you so much for your time today. And I will see you again tomorrow. If you have questions, don't hesitate to email me or leave a comment on this YouTube channel. And I can't wait for us to continue having lessons like this. So until next time, students, let's see if I can pop up this video one more time. Let's flip over here. All right, so until next time, students, I hope you are all doing wonderfully and staying safe during this time. And just kind of know, hey, we are in this thing together. Have a wonderful day, students. And students, when you are all finished with your 3 Little Pig stories, feel free to share them on Google Classroom. I would absolutely love to read your stories and perspectives. Some of the ideas that I heard last week were absolutely hilarious, and I would love to have a chance to read some of your stories or your takes on the 3 Little Pigs. Thank you. All right, what do you see?
Okay, I see gold and like a light purple or gray.
You see a light purple?
Yes.
I don't think you can see gold and purple.
Is that not one of the options?
No, I think there's no way. It's always purple and black, isn't it?
I thought it was blue and black, wasn't it?
How do you see purple?
No, it's where you see the white. To me, it looks like a light purple. Like a light purple or a grayish color.
I don't see it.
See, next to it though, you see light, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's white. To me, that's white.
The light right here?
Yeah, and the color of...
Can you see the background from the light right here?
Yeah.
I can? Okay.
Yeah, and so the color of the slide is a white color,
mm-hmm.
right? And that to me looks completely different than the color of the dress.
All right. Whatever you say, I'll roll with that.
Does
No, you're
you
right.
can't
No,
tell
no,
me
you're
that
right.
matches
No,
the
no, no.
white.
I know you're right.
Okay.
I just, yeah, no.
Okay.
I still don't get this dress. Like, yeah.